women's basketball is just getting better and better.
We have the greatest fans in women's basketball, and you're here tonight.
Just really proud of him. I guess really couldn't have asked for anything more.
The doctors at the Mayo Clinic diagnosed me with an early onset dementia, Alzheimer's type, at the age of 59. It was time for me to step down.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Lori Tucker.
And I'm Kristen Farley. We are live here at the Pat Summitt Plaza on UT's campus, a place that has really become a gathering spot for so many people who want to come by and pay their respects.
People have been coming here all day. Our hearts have been so heavy all day, but you know, people have also been sharing their stories as they come out with us, and it's turned into more of a celebration of Pat Summitt's life.
It really has. You hear that in every story. There have been a lot of tears, but there's been a lot of smiles today, really celebrating what she has meant to so many people, not just in the athletic world, but really all across our country, and specifically to so many women, empowering them to be more than maybe they thought they could ever be.
That is so true. I want to share a quick quote from Pat Summitt, and she said, "Class is more important than a game." And she certainly embodied that dignity. She made every person she met feel like they were important, and few people have that skill.
So very true. And our own former sports director, Jim Wogan, who was on earlier today giving us some analysis, actually not quoting her, but used those same words, talking about how classy she was and how she believed in winning and competing, but not at any cost of doing it the right way.
Just working harder than everybody else.
Yes.
She said that was her secret.
Yes, and of course our own Jillian Mayen has been busy really all day and really all weekend since we first started getting word that Pat's condition was on the decline, and looking back at her career and really who she was as a person, because she has done so much good.
She really has, and you guys mentioned that people have been coming and telling their stories, and we've heard so many remarkable stories about Pat, but really her story is just remarkable in and of itself, and we had the opportunity to go back through some of her greatest career moments and tell just a little bit of who Pat Summitt was.
38 years, 1,098 wins, 32 conference titles, 31 NCAA tournament appearances, 8 national championships. The numbers put her in the stratosphere of coaches, but the numbers are far from the whole story. Pat Summitt, she built a program, built a legacy, etched her name in sports history. From the dawn of Title IX to the 21st century, where women's basketball is not only popular, but played with all the ferocity and competitiveness of the men's game. She played at UT Martin from 1970 to 1974. Then she came to Knoxville and became the Lady Vols head coach at just 22 years old. At a time when lots of colleges didn't even have women's teams, let alone scholarships, Pat was still working on her master's degree while paving the way on the sidelines. She played on the 1976 Olympic squad, brought home a silver medal, and less than 10 years later, coached the USA to a gold and kept racking up the wins. Along the way, she built a family. Son Tyler started as a fixture at the edge of the court. He learned from his mom, growing into a coach himself. Like her son, Pat raised players to become coaches, and those players, they were pretty good students too. The same fire, the signature stare that rocked refs and put opponents on their heels, motivated student athletes to focus on the books as much as the court. 100%. That's the graduation rate for all Lady Vols who completed their eligibility at Tennessee under Summitt. The Lady Vols were in the Final Four time and time again. Pat's wins continued to accumulate. She passed the legendary Dean Smith when she won game number 880. UT put her name on a street and the court, and her teams kept winning, crossing the 1,000 mark in 2009. But it wasn't long after that Pat started noticing something was wrong. She found herself having trouble talking to her players one-on-one and making in-game decisions. Then, August of 2011, in a Washington Post article written by friend Sally Jenkins, Pat revealed that she had been diagnosed with early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, at just 59 years old. She didn't stop, though. True to her can't-quit nature, she kept coaching, and we saw a new advocacy spring up. We back Pat and the Pat Summitt Foundation, using her drive and her platform to raise money and awareness for the very disease taking her from the sport she loved. By the spring of 2012, UT made Summitt head coach emeritus, her former player and longtime assistant coach Holly Warlick stepping up to lead the Lady Vols. And in May of 2012, an honor shared by Mother Teresa, Neil Armstrong, and Jackie Robinson, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. For a while, you could still see her courtside, but by November of 2013, she was always outside Thompson Bowling Arena, nearly 9 feet tall, arms folded, the infamous stare. A sentinel in bronze standing watch over the legacy she leaves behind on the court, the record books, and in the hearts of players and fans.
Now, there's quite a few numbers there that we just rattled off, but really the most important takeaway that we have heard today from so many people who knew Pat as a friend, as a coach, as a player, was that she impacted their life and made their life better and made them better people. And really, that's the biggest takeaway we have from talking to everyone out here at this statue, talking to fans who have come by, is just her as a person and her love for life, her love for anyone that she really encountered.
You know, Jillian, for someone who's in the sports world, I have to ask, what has it been like covering her and her amazing career?
I think I know we've heard this all day today, but there are hardly words to really describe the impact that she has had on, personally, my life as a woman who can report on sports. None of this would be possible without Pat. She paved the way for women in sports.
Well said, my friend. Thank you so very much. We'll see you back in a little bit. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jillian. You know, we want to tell you a little bit more about the tributes that have been coming in today. And as we mentioned earlier, Kristen, there have been people from all walks of life, all ages. I saw a little 2-year-old come up hand in hand with her father, just standing there taking in the statue.
Yeah, and really right behind us, a constant stream of people. You're seeing some folks just coming by, snapping a few pictures, others laying down their own memorial or memento to Pat Summitt here at the statue that Jillian mentioned in the story that we just saw there as well. And I think
signing a poster here as well, you know, just to leave their mark on this day.
And I think this has become a place of comfort for people. So many people don't know how to express how they're feeling today, but coming here and seeing others, I think, is really part of the healing process.
Well, and we've been able to visit with people, even if as they've driven by, they'll wave and say, I'm glad we're all in this together, that we can support each other in our grief over the loss of Pat Summitt. We want to take you now to the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame that Pat Summitt had such a large role in.
She really did, and Stephanie Beacon has been down there all day long talking to fans and talking to other leaders here in our community. She joins us live with much more. Steph.
I have been down there, but I wanted to move to Pat Summitt Street, obviously named after the legendary coach, but her players tell me she was so much more than just an amazing coach. Brittany Jackson played under Coach Pat Summitt. She says thanks to Summitt, being on the team felt like having a second family.
Pat told me whenever she came to recruit me, she said, you know, I know your family's not far. I'm only an hour from here, but you're going to have a family in Knoxville too. And it's so true. I mean, since the day I stepped on campus, and, you know, I've got to meet players these last few days that I've never met before. And just, you know, it's our time to stick together and be strong, because Pat started this all. I mean, none of us would be here if it wasn't for her. So it's our job to carry on her legacy.
Nikki McCray-Penson was a 2-time All-American and SEC Player of the Year under Coach Summitt from 1991 to 1995. She had a chance to spend time with Summitt just days ago.
This past weekend, I had an opportunity to just tell her how much I loved her, and how much she meant to me, and I was very grateful to have her in my life, and just everything that she's done for me. I just really thankful.
Nikki Fargas then Caldwell spent many years with Pat. She was a player helping the team to the 1991 National Championship, then later became an assistant coach at UT. She says Summitt was a coach, mentor, and friend to those who worked with her and played under her.
It's really unspoken, like it's almost on a spiritual level that we're all going to carry with us, and we're all better people. Like I'm so much better having known her.
And players tell me she was tough on the court, but always made sure that they all knew how much she genuinely cared about each one of them in all aspects of their lives. Live on Pat Summitt Street, Stephanie Beacon, WATE 6 on your side.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much. Yes, Pat Summitt was known for being tough because she cared so much and wanted to be the best and expected the best. And we all need people like that in our lives to strive to be who we can be.
Yeah, we truly do. And you heard that one woman say in Stephanie's story, I feel like my life is better for knowing her.
Yes.
I think that everyone who has had any encounter with Pat Summitt could say the very same thing.
Absolutely. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We continue to pay tribute to the legendary Lady Vols head coach, Pat Summitt, who passed away today at the age of 64.
One of her closest friends and one of the women that she had the pleasure of coaching in her very first team here at UT, Holly Warlick, the current Lady Vols head coach. Speaking today, very tearful here at UT as she addressed everyone and answered questions. And she was speaking about how the Lady Vols truly have come together as a family, and the way they have all responded over the last week is just indicative of this love for Pat and this love for each other, how they've all come together and been here in Knoxville and been with Pat's family.
They were so grateful to have Friday evening to see her. And they were saying that just 3 weeks ago she was talking, she was in a wheelchair, that she was talking and laughing and enjoying the company of those around her. So this happened so quickly in their minds and in our minds that they were so grateful to have a few days to grasp what was happening and spend time with her.
Yeah, Warlick even talking a little bit about how so many of the players from the WNBA just got up and rushed here without thinking about where they were going to stay or what they were going to do, that a lot of them are staying with current players here, that family just taking them in and embracing them. And our own Jillian Mahan had a chance to talk to Holly a little bit later today. We want to share that interview with you.
Of course, there's been support and messages pouring in from really around the globe tonight, but we're joined by somebody who is close to Pat, not just close, but one of her closest friends, somebody who learned from Pat through many, many years. Coach Holly Warlick. Coach, you got to see Pat in here in her final days. What was it like going there and seeing her for what could have been and turned out to be the final time?
Well, I think that I don't think she was. I think she was at peace and got the chance to talk to her, and you know, I know she heard everybody that went in there, and it was just a matter of saying goodbyes and making sure she knew that we were okay and that she was going to a better place.
We've talked to many former players, we've talked to coaches who've been impacted by her. You happen to be both a former player and a coach who is not only coaching in women's basketball, but you filled her shoes.
Yeah.
You're stepping up to the plate here. What impact has she had on your life? Can you put that into words?
Well, look, I throughout the years, Pat and she was my coach, my mentor, and then a great friend. And you know, I think probably the one thing that she has taught me is it's not about you. And it never was about Pat Summitt. It was about this team and this our kids and women and getting better. So I think from all that, it's be passionate with what you do, love what you do, and it's not about you. And so I've just tried to live by that. And look, she's prepared me for what I'm doing now.
So many people, we've been talking so much about her impact off the court, as you just talked about, and you mentioned that she became a lifelong friend for you off the court. What was it that made her such a good friend?
I just love Pat's sense of humor, and she was never serious about herself, and so that's what a lot of people don't see, that I got the opportunity to see. We all see her dressed up, but she loved running around in gym shorts and a t-shirt. And
all right, Holly, thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
Guys, back to you.
All right, Jillian, thank you so much. We saw Holly out here when I was out here earlier today for our earlier newscast, and she walked by and you could tell that the tears didn't stop flowing. And I watched her walk across the street as she went to make her announcement and talk to everybody live. We carried it live at 6 o'clock, and wiping away her tears. It's such a sad day for everyone, but especially her.
And we just saw her moments ago before we went on the air here at 8 o'clock, and still incredibly emotional, and rightfully so. I mean, she shared so many stories, even about how she would go running with Pat Summitt, and just all of the bonds that they have shared over the years. I mean, such a dear friend and mentor to her for so many years.
Very close. So this is a huge loss for her, for her community as well.
We keep talking about all the ways that Pat Summitt has given back to so many people and impacted so many people. And of course, when she was diagnosed back in 2011, she almost immediately started the Pat Summitt Foundation.
She formed a plan of action. Her strategy for the games, is in a similar fashion. And she came up with a plan. And that plan, of course, included giving back and helping others who have this same diagnosis and their families. So we want to bring in someone who's crucial to this foundation fund.
Yeah, we have the director of the foundation, Patrick Wade. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And I know, just like for so many people, a very difficult day for all of you.
Absolutely, you're right. It is for the whole community and really the entire country. We're all mourning a special person that was just a fantastic leader and fantastic woman.
Talk to us about, how the fund works.
Sure.
Because I know that you all are very smart in that when we go to the website, patsummitt.org, it's very easy to give. You see donate now very clearly.
Yeah, well, thank you. We do our best to try to make it easy because there's so many thanks. There's so many supporters, and we owe it to them. We need to do everything we can for what they do. And the foundation, we raise funds to make grants to the nonprofit organizations that are doing the work, serving Alzheimer's patients, caregivers, and conducting research for a cure. And our number one priority, which we announced last year, is we're creating the Pat Summitt Alzheimer's Clinic across the river at the UT Medical Center. And that opens in December, and we'll do all those things I just mentioned. And it's just the beginning of the next chapter, the next legacy for Pat Summitt.
Patrick, all day we have been hearing and using the words ourselves, celebrating her life. How do you think Pat Summitt would want all of us to feel and to move forward from this day?
Well, I mentioned this to someone earlier, and I think she would say, all right, get to work. That's what all the Lady Vols have said. Pat Summitt said herself, I may not be the most talented person in the world, but I will outwork you. And that's how she became so successful and how her players were. And she's given us the charge. She would say, it's no time for a pity party. It's time to get out there and make a difference.
And she literally said that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure,
literally
absolutely.
Said that.
Yeah. And you know what? She doesn't have to. She walks into a room and you get busy.
Yes. Yes, she had that energy.
We owe it to her to do that, yeah.
I'm curious, Patrick, because, we've asked you about the business side of things and her legacy. Share a story about Pat Summitt, a personal story with us.
Yeah, well, when I first started working with the foundation, it was soon after that they unveiled the statue at UT Martin, where she played, of course. And you know how she's always been so dedicated to her fans and sign autographs. And we were kind of shuttling her from place to place, and there was a tight schedule, and we had to move her along to the next activity. And she refused to leave because there was still a crowd of people that were signing autographs, and she even gave us the look when we said, you got to go. She said, no, we're not. We're signing these autographs. And, that's just, she's always been appreciative and genuinely for what the fans have done to help her and the Lady Vols be successful.
You said that look.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, fortunately, I never got the real one on the basketball court, but it was good enough,
Yeah.
So right.
She perfected that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she did. She knew how to use it. Yeah. So.
From this day on, excuse my voice here. Your foundation will continue to try to live out her goals when she started this. How do you plan to move forward and continue to do that?
Well, in every way we can. And you know what? The reason why we've had any success that we have had is because we have an entire community, again, nationwide, especially right here in Knoxville, the partners with the UT Medical Center, the things that y'all do here in town to help. So we have just an incredible team, just like Pat would want, and we just got to make the most out of that. And every single day, that's what we do. How can we be better? How can we achieve what it is that Pat set out to do?
And that's really on us as a community to help continue that effort. So once again, the website is patsummitt.org. Very easy to give, and very quickly, you all do things with the grant money, providing transportation for Alzheimer's patients, research, programs.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we everything from caregiver resources that are free and on our website for folks to use. And Pat, from the very beginning, she made sure, I want to make sure we're making a difference right here in town. And so those first grants were made right here in town, and we'll have a huge presence here. But what's great about this clinic is it'll have a national impact.
And I need to ask one last time.
Yeah,
we talked about this earlier. Do you think that she had any idea the impact she would have by going public with her battle with this disease?
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to speak for her. I don't know, but as we all have known, Pat Summitt never lost her humility. No matter, she was the best there ever was, but she was as genuine as they come and humble. And my guess is she would be surprised, but she would be glad, not because of her, but because a difference is being made.
Right. Patrick, thank you so very much.
Sure.
We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And I believe it was Joan Cronin who said that Pat Summitt told her she didn't dream that a legacy would be this devastating disease, but it is one of her legacies. She has left many, and who gets to do that?
She always said that she felt like she was here to do something more than just basketball. I'm not even sure that she realizes just how much of an impact she has had on so many communities and so many women who have grown up being more than they thought they could ever be.
Absolutely. And she had humble beginnings.
Very humble beginnings.
A little farm in Henrietta, Tennessee, and our own Don Dare traveled there this morning to look back at Pat Summitt's roots before she was Pat Summitt, when she was Trish Head.
That's right, and we're going to share his story coming up, his story coming up in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing to honor and to celebrate the life of Pat Summitt here at the plaza, where you can see behind us right now the crowd growing as the evening moves on.
Just in the last few minutes, so many more people have come by. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a not somber, but still essence here.
There really is. And you said that earlier in our newscast, and now that I'm down here, I sense that.
Yeah.
I also sense a kind of a feeling of community and togetherness. You may not know the person standing to your right, but you're all here for the same reason, the same impact this wonderful woman had on your life, and to pay respects. And there's just kind of a unity here right now.
There really is. That's what Big Orange Nation is all about.
It truly is.
We're all down here together.
As we continue to share stories all day, one of the things that has resonated was just how humble Pat Summitt always remained.
So very humble. And that's the mark of a true leader, and the truly successful people that you meet in this life are usually humble.
Very.
Because they get it. and she certainly got it. And she was an inspiration to all of us and continues to be.
You know, Don Dare spent most of the day out in Middle Tennessee talking to people there and learning more about her roots and what actually got her here to East Tennessee.
He did. He's actually right now in Ashland City, which is northwest of Nashville. And Don, you've been so busy today sort of tracing her roots and her beginnings.
That's right, Lori. We talked today to a former classmate and former high school basketball teammate of Pat's. We looked at the 1970 yearbook, Pat's senior year. She had accumulated quite a few accolades then. She was a leader known as Trish Head. Head is her maiden name. In 1966, the Head family moved to Cheatham County. Pat's three brothers and sisters still live down the road in the tiny community of Henrietta, which is about 10 miles from here. But this is where Pat Head Summitt first made a name for herself. The gym at Cheatham County Central High School is named after Pat Summitt. This is where she first started playing basketball. Her family moved to Cheatham County from Clarksville because the city there had no girls basketball team.
She started on the team playing as a freshman.
Norma Bashirs was a junior in high school and Pat was a senior. They played together on the basketball team.
A lot of media talks about her glare and the look, but Pat, she was loving and caring, and she took care of a lot of people and did very nice things for many, many people.
Known as Trish to her classmates, Pat was captain of the basketball team. She was voted most popular of her high school class and sweetheart of her homecoming court.
And she made us feel so special, and that's the thing that is so fantastic about her, is that no matter how many awards that she received and how many celebrities that she was associated with, when she came back to Cheatham County, she was still the same girl, and she made us feel just as special as ever.
I would run into her a couple of times at her mom's house. My mom and dad used to live right across the street from her.
Tanya Shannon is a realtor in Ashland City. She said Pat would often return here to her roots.
She had a big impact on this community, the school, and everybody's lives around here.
I've been down in Ashland City today and went by to see several of our friends just because we're all so sad. And I mean, down at the Tucker Empson building, every lady that I saw in there, they all were talking about Pat.
Today, Coach Summitt's high school jersey hangs in the trophy case, along with other memorabilia, all serving as an inspiration to those who knew her when.
You're just kind of walking around today. It's just hard to believe that this has really happened.
That she's gone.
Yes.
Now, Norma told us a story about Pat's graciousness. Norma became the high school basketball coach at Cheatham County Central High School, and she had invited Pat here to speak when Pat's reputation across the state was on the rise. Pat said yes with a big smile on her face. She came, and Norma said she didn't want any money at all, and Norma said she didn't even offer Pat any money for gas, to pay for her gas to come here. Talk about graciousness and humbleness. Lori and Kristen, back to you.
All right, Don, thank you so much.
Stories.
Such a kind woman.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that I know I've talked to you about it, Lori. I read the book Sum It Up after living here for several years and just wanting to know more and wanting to learn more. And the more that you learn about Pat Summitt, really the more you love and embrace her. She just has been such a model, an inspiration, someone to follow.
Someone who's just the total package of goodness, smarts, competitiveness, you name it. She wanted to win, and she did.
And she lived her life leading by example.
Yes.
She didn't say anything that she wasn't willing to do herself.
Right, a strong Christian as well, and I think that's really important to include. Her faith was very, very strong, and she lived it. She walked the walk, that's for sure.
You know, we've been watching tributes and specials about Pat Summitt, really not just for the last couple days, but for years and years. Pat Summitt deserves all of the accolades coming her way, and back in 2012, she was honored at the ESPYs.
She received the Arthur Ashe Courage Award again in 2012. It was not long after her diagnosis with early onset dementia, Alzheimer's type, and she was so gracious then in the acceptance of this award, and we have a wonderful, wonderful tribute from that evening. It's actually in 2 parts. We're going to share the first part with you now, and this is narrated by Reese Witherspoon.
She's been to the summit 3 times now.
And Pat Summitt wins the 4th of her sparkling career.
Over so many years,
39-0.
so many victories,
Tennessee has won the national championship.
so many lessons, challenges, and celebrations.
1,000 career wins.
It can be easy to miss the full story.
Her 5th national championship in 11 years.
Let the record speak for itself. Pat Summitt is the winningest coach in college basketball history.
This is the story of a woman whose journey has always been about something other than success. It's the story of a farm girl who views the world as a place you don't just live in, but a place you change.
We had a dairy farm. I just remember milking cows 5 a.m. and 5 p.m.
I don't think my grandfather knew what to do with my mom. He just assumed, hey, I can just treat her like the boys, and that's what she became.
We were strict on him. Of course, he was a little more stricter than I was. You know, it generally goes that way.
My father, he was the one that probably inspired me the most. Times he challenged me and said, I don't know if you'll ever be able to do this. And of course, that's all I needed to hear.
And so when the girl fell in love with a sport for boys, she resolved to make it all her own. She became the best basketball player in Montgomery County, an All-American in college, a silver medalist at the Olympics. And at age 22, she was named the head coach of the women's basketball team in her home state at the University of Tennessee.
She was tough on us because we were so close in age. She had to make sure that we understood she was the coach and we were the players.
Guys, what are you doing?
When I played for her, I thought, man, this lady's crazy. She's crazy. And I'd go out of the gym going, I don't think I can do it.
Pat said, it's a lot easier to start tough and get nicer than it is to start nice and get tougher.
What do you not understand about passive every time?
I didn't mind holding people accountable. I knew I had a lot to learn, but I also knew that coaching was my passion.
When she started, the NCAA was still 8 years away from recognizing women's basketball as a sport. That was perfect for Pat. It was an opportunity to affect change on the court and way beyond.
I don't think that she planned to be a pioneer, but I think that she was comfortable being the pioneer.
She didn't smash through glass ceilings, she was a glass cutter. You know, she would sort of etch away, you know, at the glass ceiling until she popped out a big old square.
We have to have more television exposure. That's going to be significant if we're going to see progress in the next decade.
She had so many obstacles to get them on television, to get them recognized, to put women's basketball in the forefront.
The men got a bigger locker room, and she fought for us, and we got that bigger locker room. And so she knew what she was doing, and you know, she set a precedent.
This is a chance of a lifetime. You can't be afraid to go out and compete and do whatever it takes.
Her determination and her success have never been limited just to the game. For Pat Summitt, perseverance has always been utterly personal. You would understand that if you knew all the turns her life has taken. The pain and anguish of 6 miscarriages. The joy when her son was born.
Finally, I got Tyler, and he was a gift from God.
Pat's never shown her struggles. Just like the miscarriages, just like her divorce, losing her dad, you know, whatever Pat deals with, she just doesn't show it.
There's two sides of her. They'll see her piercing into some official or yelling at one of her players, but she knows how to relate to somebody and really be a mom for her players and for me.
Her demands went off the court into the way the kids lived and what they did academically, and I think that's why so many of her players have been very, very successful.
In 38 years as head coach, every one of Pat Summitt's players has graduated. 74 members of the Lady Vol family have followed her path into coaching. Countless others touched by a phone call, a letter, or a conversation.
Coach is there for us as a mentor, and I think I always carry it around where I want to make her proud.
This was one of my favorite tribute pieces I've seen all day. And again, that was just part of it. This was on ESPN, so you can go there to their website and watch the rest of it as well. And, you know, Lori, as I was watching that this morning, you know, kind of getting a little bit emotional myself, I got a text from a friend of mine who was actually the manager of the women's volleyball team here at UT some 20 plus years ago. And she said, did I ever tell you that Pat Summitt's responsible for me getting a full ride at school? And she said, because Pat and Joan Cronin, this is what, in her words, fought to make sure that all the managers of women's teams also got full rides as well.
Wow.
Just another one of those ways that many of us are learning about the true impact of Pat Summitt.
Things that she may not have thought about for years, but had a huge impact on someone's life, changed the trajectory.
It really did.
It really did. Well, you know, Pat Summitt has 3 books out, and we encourage you to read all 3, but guess what? There's a 4th coming out, and we're going to talk to the author of her next book. It's called The Final Season, The Perseverance of Pat Summitt. We'll be back with that. Welcome back, everyone. You know, just a few seconds ago, we talked about Pat Summitt's 4th book. It's called The Final Season, The Perseverance of Pat Summitt.
Yeah, the author of that book, Maria Cornelius, has been spending a lot of time speaking not just with us, but she was telling us earlier today that she's done some 17 interviews, and even she did not realize the scope of Pat Summitt until she got a call from the BBC today.
Oh my goodness.
So she has been a busy lady. She's back in our studio now with our own anchor, Ryan O'Donnell, joining us now with the very latest. Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Kristen, Lori, and you know what? That was just one phone call, one interview that Maria has done today about the late Pat Summitt here. She's joining us right next to me to talk about kind of just what it's been like. You know, you started out covering the Lady Vols as a sports writer and saw just kind of the team and the attitude behind Coach Summitt and what it was about. As a writer and covering the games, what was it like? Was it really intense for you or surprised? I mean,
it was one of the best experiences of my life. I got the best basketball education because I listened to Pat Summitt coach at hundreds of practices. I was an undersized guard in high school, terrible player, could have never, I mean, I was okay, could never play for Pat, obviously.
Yeah.
But to listen to her coach that team, I was thinking, you know, I might be able to go for 4 minutes, a 4-minute segment. I might be able to hang for just a few minutes. I know a few basics here, but it was literally one of the best experiences of my life to be courtside for so many practices and so many games, and to be able to cover someone like Pat Summitt. And plus, she made it so easy. She opened up her program and welcomed the media in.
That sounds like a lot of different media people are saying that even if mistakes were made, she was always there to just kind of help them out and say, listen, don't worry about it. I'll take care of this. Your book, this comes out here in the fall, The Final Season. What made you decide to want to write about this?
It seemed like something that needed to be documented, and I have to give credit to Patrick Murphy-Racy for that photo. He is
Good
a
picture.
longtime photographer. That is from her last season. And when I was reviewing Sally Jenkins' book, Sum It Up, the definitive book on Pat Summitt, I mentioned that she had to rush through the book in the very end to get that final season in there, get that in one of the final chapters.
Sure.
And I said in a review, that season is worth its own book. And Sally Jenkins said, you were there, you write it.
How long has it taken you to write that book?
The whole process, beginning to end, starting over with fresh interviews with some of the former players and the coaches that were there, and Candace Parker, Angie Bjorklund. I went back a few years. It was a 2-year process, working a lot, mostly on the weekends, because I continued to cover the team, the current team in Holly Warlick's era. And so every weekend, that's what I did, because I have a full-time job, obviously, with Moxley Carmichael. They blessed this project. They said, you chase your dream, you follow this, and they have been with me every step of the way and encouraging me to do this. And we are at the point now where we're about to index it and send it off to the printer.
Wow. And following and covering Coach Pat so much, there's no way you could have stopped and quit.
No.
Writing that book.
No,
There's no way she'd let that happen.
No, don't give in to fatigue. That was one thing Pat always said. Don't you dare give in to fatigue.
So we have an excerpt from the book here, and this is from freshman Sierra Burdick. So this is, again, from that final season. And you picked this out here, saying we wanted to give everything we had, not only for the program, but for her. I'm talking about Coach Pat, right? She was so selfless and didn't make it about her. You can't forget something like that. What is it about this interview and what she had to say that you really like?
That was Sierra talking about Pat telling the team. She told the whole team in late August of 2011. And of course, the players, I mean, absolutely devastated by it. And I asked Sierra Burdick, what do you remember most about that meeting? And she said, Pat, she didn't make it about her. Pat always said, it's not about you. Pat never made it about her either. She told this team, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be your coach. We're going to get through this. She didn't throw she didn't say, why me? She didn't throw a pity party. She encouraged the players. She told them it's going to be okay. She's trying to comfort them, and she's the one that has this horrible disease.
Unbelievable, huh? She's going to be missed. Maria, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And giving us some insight here. So, Lori, Kristen, we're going to send it back out to you guys there at Pat Summitt Plaza. All right, sounds like we got to figure out the microfilm problem first. But what we're going to do is, you know what, since Maria's still here, why don't we keep chatting with Maria, because I'm sure the stories are endless. Yes. So many people have come out here and talked to us about what's another one of your stories that really sticks out for you, either covering as a sports writer or maybe just in this book that you're finishing up here in the fall.
Well, one I'll talk about covering, and Kamiko Williams, a former Lady Vol, if she's listening, I want to apologize to Kamiko. Pat loved the media. We were all sitting at the baseline one year, I think it was the 2009-10 season, and they were struggling, and Kamiko was struggling. She was a young player trying to adjust to Pat. And Pat's talking to the media because she loved to talk to us about, my team needs to start doing this and this and this. And I said, gosh, Pat, when's the last time you threw somebody out of practice? And her whole face changed, and she's like, and I'm like, oh my goodness, somebody is in trouble today.
What did you just do?
Within the first 15 minutes, she yelled at Kamiko Williams, and Kamiko was like, what, I didn't do anything that bad. Then she yelled at her again, said, I'm going to throw you out of practice if you don't, shape up. 5 minutes later, out of practice. Kamiko runs off the floor, burst into tears, crying. Dean Lockwood and Holly are looking at each other like, that wasn't even that bad. We've seen players do far worse. And I'm just sitting there going, this is all my fault.
Like that
Pat got that in her mind. And so, Kamiko, if you're watching, I'm sorry. That was my fault.
Good story, Maria. Thank you very much. All right. I think we got the microphone problem all fixed up. Lori, Kristen, how are you guys doing now?
All right. Thanks,
it's the
Ryan.
simple things.
Yes, hazards of live TV, and as more and more people arrive, it was pretty simple. Our mic cord literally just got kind of kicked out of the jack here.
Yeah, we know it was an accident.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep moving on.
We're going to keep moving on.
All right. Hey, we have, talk about a familiar face. Come on in here, Bob Kessling.
I did not kick the cord out, by the way.
No,
sure?
We're witnesses. You've been standing with us. We've been watching you. Of course, the voice of the Vols and the voice of the Lady Vols before that for some 20 years. Yeah. You're in a unique position because you covered Pat Summitt and you worked with her.
Indeed, and we both started out very humble beginnings over at Stokely Athletic Center. I was getting paid $15 a game, and we were traveling around in vans and station wagons and getting to ride around with Pat Summitt, over to NC State and these other places. We got to know each other very well, and the players on the team. And it was special for me because I saw the building process and the little things she was doing. how consistent she was with the players, the way she treated them. And she treated them, like adults and expected them to act like adults. And it was special.
How quickly did you know that Pat Summitt had that spark?
That it? Yeah.
That it?
Pretty quick, because you could tell how intense she was in the practice. And what I really thought was impressive, she could get on them. I mean, really chew on them. And then as soon as practice is over, she's got her arm around her and then going to her house for dinner and all those type things. So she had this motherly impact on them that they knew that she was really rooting for them to be the best they could. But it was tough love, and they knew that as well.
That's got to be so hard to do, to finesse. Showing that tough love and that ferocity, and yet that nurturing side as well.
Lori, I think the thing about Pat, though, she was the same every day. You got Pat Summitt every single day, and
you knew what you were getting.
You knew exactly what you were getting, and you knew what she expected. I mean, she expected excellence, and she expected your very best every single day. And if you didn't give it, she'd throw you out of practice or whatever. She'd throw media guys out of practice who were making too much noise.
I've heard a lot of reporters talk about those conversations on the bus being some of their best memories. Excuse me as I get a little bit choked here. What do you remember about sitting on the bus talking with Pat Summitt?
Oh, she would talk about her days, back in Henrietta when she was milking cows and playing basketball with her brothers, and they were, stuffing her in trash cans and stuff like that. But that toughened her though.
Right.
And but she, and it was I think she learned great lessons because, did you milk the cow or didn't you milk the cow? Did you get it done or did you not get it done? Did you bale the hay or did you not?
It's a yes or no kind of
Yes
thing.
or no. There's no gray, and there was no ever any gray with Pat Summitt. She expected you to do your job and do it the best you could.
All right, I've got to ask you, because we've been asking everyone who spent time with her their favorite personal story.
Well, one of the ones I think it's just shows her personality. Back in 1990, the Lady Vols were hosting the Final Four here, but they didn't make it. They got upset by Virginia. And so now, and Stanford was here, and they had Jennifer Azzi from Oak Ridge. And everybody just thought, well, why didn't you recruit Jennifer Azzi? She had to deal with all that. So now Pat comes back here just disappointed with the fact that she's not being able to play in the Final Four on her home floor. And so but she's a good hostess. She comes over and she's doing what she's supposed to do. And so the practice session, she's around shaking hands. And so Stanford was the last team to practice. So they're leaving the floor, and now I'm going to get out of here finally. And as she's walking off the floor, this little girl leans out over the railing and has a program and a pen and says, Coach Summitt, could you do me a big favor? Could you get Jennifer Azzi's autograph for me?
No.
And Pat took the program, went into the Stanford locker room, got Jennifer Azzi to sign it, brought it back out to the little girl, so there you go.
That little girl today is probably going, I wish I had Pat Summitt's autograph right now.
But that just shows you what type of person Pat
was.
was.
Character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we loved about it.
Truly is. And you called 6 of the 8 championship games. That's huge.
Especially, and the thing I think people forget that, this was an instant success. I mean, they went to the Final Four 7 times before they won it.
Yeah.
And then finally.
And there were years between some of them.
Yeah, and then when they finally knocked down the door in '87 with Shelley Sexton Collier and all those folks, it was just really special. So it's like she wasn't an overnight success, but she was so persistent and driven to be really good. And
she built it.
She did. Yeah. Bob, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, we want to go back now into the studio, and Ryan O'Donnell standing by with another familiar face, adding more perspective to the life of Pat Summitt.
Who also covered Pat Summitt, someone who is near and dear to our hearts.
Yes. Hey, guys, thanks a lot. I'm with former WATE 6 on your side sports director Jim Wogan. And, yeah, you've covered a few games.
Yeah, I've been around for 6 of the 8 national titles. And, look, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to say this to kind of put a cap on it. In the 24 years that I knew Pat Summitt, all I can say, it was a privilege to be around her and to cover her. I felt like I caught lightning in a bottle when I came here in 1990, and I was here through a crazy period of Tennessee athletics. And to have Pat Summitt be a part of that and me to be able to cover that was just an immense privilege for me to be around. And I didn't do anything. I just sort of rode the wagon that was rolling. And Pat Summitt was one of those people that was steering the wagon, and I was glad to be on board, is all I can say.
Well, let's quickly talk about this before we head back to the ladies there at Pat Summitt Plaza. What am I looking at here?
That was after the 90. I think that was the year they went undefeated, and actually the Lady Vols made the cover of the Sporting News, which at the time time around here, for the Lady Vols to make the cover of a national
deal.
sports publication was huge. And I'm not one, because of our role as a journalist, to get autographs, but I did drop that off at the office, and I said if she ever gets a chance to sign it, sign it. And Pat signed it, and it's been in the house ever since. So it's one of my prized possessions.
What does it say? Go ahead.
You want me to read this?
Absolutely.
Jim, I enjoy working with you and appreciate your friendship. You do a super job, Pat Summitt. So that's always been...
that's the thing. She took the time to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I've covered a lot of coaches out there. A lot of these big-time Division I coaches, they don't make that time for you.
And I wish I could add more, but Farley and Tucker could never take a rap. So, so you're welcome to toss it back to them at any time. But again, it was just an immense pleasure and privilege to be a part of that. And that's all I was just, as I said, along for the ride.
Good lady.
Yep, she
Jim,
was.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, we've got a couple more minutes here, and then we're going to go back out to Pat Summitt Plaza with Kristen and Lori. We'll be right back.
We're here live at Pat Summitt Plaza, where people continue to gather tonight. Most people wearing that Tennessee orange.
Yeah, and we are seeing a lot of We Back Pat shirts, the ones that became so popular back in 2011 and 2012 after she formed the foundation, and so many people rallying around the coach.
Absolutely, and of course we're seeing those orange, white, and blue Lady Vol shirts as well, and I know that I'm sure she would like that. Celebration of Life for Pat Summitt, we want to tell you, is coming up. It's open to the public. It is on July 14th at 7 p.m. at Thompson Bowling Arena.
We also want to remind you that the Henley Street Bridge will be lit up in orange, white, and blue this evening. We'll share that with you a little bit later. We have all of our stories on our website at WATE.com.
Thanks so much for being with us as we pay tribute to the one and only Pat Summitt.